Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. In this quick guitar tricks we're looking at 7 licks that you can use to bluff slide guitar, which also serve as a great foundation if this type of playing tickles your fancy. As usual, I'll be doing a brief analysis of the licks. If you don't want that and you just want the licks, use the timestamps down in the pinned comment in the description. These will all be in A minor. I'll link to some jam tracks in that key with a card at the top right. So hopefully by the end of this tutorial we'll be able to play guitar like the living legend that is Ralph Macchio, and be more than capable of destroying Steve Vai in an impromptu guitar battle. Or maybe, just have a few new slide licks. To intonate the notes, get them at the right pitch, you probably want the slide to be straight, so perpendicular to the strings, and have the point of contact directly above the fret wire. If I play this open A string, we can hear where the slide needs to be to get the correct pitch. Although it appears like the slide is further forward, if we look at it from above, you can see that because of the curve, the slide is only really touching the string around the fret wire. In terms of pressure, you want to apply enough that the slide isn't rattling against the strings, but not so much that you hear it scraping across the frets. So not like that, and not this rattle either. You want to put on just enough so you're getting the note nice and cleanly. Not hearing the frets when you go over them, and not getting a weird rattle or harmonic. I would also try out a few different fingers. I find I have the best control. I can still move my fingers enough to chord and play some basic lead with the slide on my third finger. Bonus tip, higher action, that is string height, will generally make slide playing a bit easier. Guthrie Goffin's trick is to put some Rizla or a folded train ticket under the strings just at the nut here, like maybe that first fret, just to get a few extra millimeters of said string height, without having to reset up the guitar, that sort of thing. You might not need to do this, I usually don't, but it's a trick worth knowing nonetheless. And that's the basics out of the way, on with the licks. Bar 1, I'm going from the flat 5 to the 5, and then the root. Bonus tip, you can let these notes ring out into each other, or go back and forth between them a few times like I did in that intro demo. And sliding out is pretty cool as well. Bar 2, we've got the flat third up to the third, then the root. Bonus tip, I tend to use my fingers for slide because I find it much easier to mute out the other strings. For example, with this one I'm resting my thumb over the bottom 2 strings and the tip of it on the D string. My middle finger and third finger are resting on the B strings and the E strings respectively, plucking the G string with my index finger, and then thumbing the D for the root. So when I play the root with my thumb, I'm also bringing my index finger onto the G string to stop it from ringing out. So I'm playing this with my index, and then when I move the slide down to the root to thumb it, and bring my index finger back onto the G to stop it from ringing out. Otherwise you get these two notes together, which sound okay now but would clash with the kind of A drone that we're going for here. So doing this, and then just as I come to play the note with my thumb, muting that string with my index finger, as I say. If you've got a smaller slide like this, this kind of muting isn't always necessary, but if you're using a full-size one, just to give you a quick idea, it sounds a lot messier than if we mute the strings. Which you might be able to get away if you've got like a loud band or something going on, but if you're playing by yourself, you're going to want to keep a lot cleaner. Just a slight side note as well, you do get different types of slides, like different materials and different thicknesses. I prefer this one because I find it a bit easier to move my fingers and do other stuff. But if you get a thicker side, like this one, you can see, hopefully from there, is a lot thicker. You do get a kind of smoother sound, and I'd say a bit more sustain with it as well. So it's just, it's one of these things, it's like string gauges or whatever, or plectrum sizes. You just have to work out what's best for yourself, what sort of compromises you want to make. I've never tried a porcelain slide, so if you let me know what those are like in the comments, if you've ever played one, that would be great. So at this next lick here, we've got this. So I should have listened to my own advice there, I should have muted that a little bit better than that last time round. But in bar 3, we've got this flat 7 to the root, back down to the flat 7, 4th, up to the 5th. And again, I'm trying to mute the strings like I did in my last example. My thumb more or less resting over the E, and the tip on the A string this time. My index finger, the tip of that's on the D. I'm resting my middle finger on the G string, my third finger on the B, and my little finger might find its way to the E string depending on how it's feeling, or it might just kind of be floating about. And again, when I switch to that A string, what I'm doing is plucking with my thumb and try to rest my index finger over the D string to mute out that D string at least. These licks might seem a little bit dull, but you're much better to have a solid foundation, basic licks done to a good standard, rather than running scales with questionable intonation. The former will just sound more confident, controlled, and generally better. Bar 4, a double stop here, going from the 4th and the flat 7th, played together, up to the 5th and the root, again, played together, the double stop. Double stops are great for slide playing. A subtle vibrato will also sound pretty cool. Again, with the vibrato, start slow. When you're good with that, speeding it up should still be kind of steady and it shouldn't sound too wild. This is something that will give the game away quite quickly if you're kind of trying to blag slide guitar. If you go for this kind of fast, erratic, uncontrolled vibrato, it's gonna let people know you don't know what you're doing. If you do a nice kind of slow, controlled one, it's gonna sound much more confident and like you know what you're doing. You're gonna be able to blag slide guitar a bit more with that. Now, having said this, my slide vibrato isn't great at all. I'm just kind of moving it, the slide above and below the pitch in a nice kind of steady, methodical way. It's not unlike the fusion style of vibrato. Lesson card for that in the top right. And bar 5, we have this lick. We have the root up to the flat 3rd, and then the root an octave higher again. Bonus tip, when playing slide, don't be afraid to mute notes and not milk the slide when going between every note. This will help train your intonation and sound a bit more authentic as well. In terms of the muting, I'm just keeping my index finger on the G string so it doesn't ring out. Bar number 6, we have this. Bar 6, we have the root up to the flat 3rd, and then the 5th. To play these last two notes together, you'll need to tilt the slide. This might be a bit tricky, but it's really worthwhile technique to at least be aware of when you're starting out with some slide playing. If you've got a smaller slide like this, it can be quite difficult to do, and you might need to tilt it quite a lot to be able to get it sort of well intonated. I'm letting these last two notes ring into each other. That's why I'm doing the tilt. But you don't have to do that, I just like the way it sounds. So you could play this lick, just single notes as well. And this is an example of, like, earlier when I was talking about you don't have to slide to every note. This might be one where it's quite good to play this note, mute the string up to the flat 3rd, and then maybe go slide into the 5th from the flat 5. So yeah, bonus lick I suppose. That's the thing, like, these are kind of guidelines, so like chuck in any variations you can think of, have a play about with them to see what comes out. But yeah, here is our final lick. Bar 7, double stop sliding here. We've got the flat 3rd and the 5th with that tilt up to the 5th and the root. I'm more or less aiming to have the slide straightened up by the 15th fret, kind of doing this movement. And that gives me the smoothest sound. And you can play about with this though, so for example you could sort of pivot the slide above the 13th frets, so we could go. So there I'm kind of going, straighten it up, putting it back down, then up. I'll do that a bit quicker again without speaking over the top of it. And you know that would sound nice in particular over if we had an F major 7 or even an F to an A minor, because those notes there are going to kind of work better with an F major 7 than or an F than the A minor that I'm kind of going for here. But just to point out that, you know, you can play them over different chords as well. These are aimed for A minor. There's a whole world of chords for you guys to explore out there. That rounds up our licks, which you may have noticed were the basis for that intro solo there. As I touched on before, I'd suggest you play around with these, let the notes ring into each other, change about the timings, and try joining different examples together. A final bonus tip. If you really want to get into slide, look at some alternate tunings. I mean, even drop D means you can get a power chord with the slide if I tune down here. Open G or Open D might also be worth a look, but I'm not going to dive into those right now. But if you guys would like some more slide licks in those tunings, let me know in the comments. Those were some licks you can use to blag slide guitar. This has been Quick Tricks, that's the playlist there. For some more slide style licks but without a slide and in fact using a whammy bar, check out this Jeff Beck Pro Tips tutorial. Hit subscribe, share, like, comment and enable notifications with that little bell on the side if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.